3 years ago, it was my last year in pharmacy school. I could barely eat. I couldn't eat pizza for some reason. Even a slice would ruin my sleep. I would wake up 4 to 5 times that night, holding my stomach with both hands writhing in pain. It didn't make sense. I've had pizza for 20 years with no issues. It was the sickest I've ever been. Fast forward to 3 months ago, my doctor told me that I have Crohn's disease. I still haven't had any pizza since, and now I have to give it up for the rest of my life. It didn't make any sense. How do you suddenly develop an autoimmune disease? Just out of nowhere. The treatment was immunosuppressants for life. No, thanks. And so, for the past 3 months, I was looking for a way to reverse this, to find a cure for an incurable disease, using everything I understood about my symptoms, everything I learned in pharmacy school, everything I knew about the human body. I spent weeks reading biomedical papers. It's a 1 in a billion shot, maybe 1 in a trillion. I was looking for something that may not even exist. This is what I found: inulin. Inulin is a type of dietary fiber. There are only certain foods high in inulin. The list is pretty short. I tried finding other sources, but they all seem to refer back to this paper that was published when I was born. Inulin is processed in the gut into something called butyric acid or butyrate. Butyrate is the primary energy source for colonocytes. These are cells that line the colon. Check this out. Butyric acid is a major oxidative fuel for colonocytes, supplying approximately 60 to 70% of their energy requirements. Did you pick up what this paper just said? Our colon gets 60 to 70% of its energy from butyrate. Inulin is calories, fiber is calories. You'll never look at the nutrition facts label the same way. So, butyrate, who is this relevant for? Only people with the colon. How long do they need butyrate? Well, as long as you need a colon. Okay, this is interesting. For patients with inflammatory bowel disease, as many as 80% of patients with active disease and about 60% of patients in remission report fatigue and find it even more debilitating than other symptoms. When people feel fatigued or tired, it could mean that the body is deficient of some energy source. I wonder, how much inulin are inflammatory bowel disease patients consuming? But that's not the only thing that butyrate does to the body. Butyrate also is essential to maintaining the stability of the intestinal barrier. You couldn't write a better plotline. Another paper notes that butyrate regulates the mature production, proper trafficking, and an adequate functioning of innate and adaptive immune cells in inflammatory bowel disease, indicating its role in gut inflammation. The most concerning issue with inflammatory bowel disease is in its name. There's chronic inflammation in the GI tract. Butyrate, formed when inulin is fermented by the microbiome, reduces colon inflammation by taming the immune system. Also, inflammatory bowel disease is associated with an increased risk for colorectal cancer, which it turns out butyrate may help with that as well. With everything we just learned about butyrate, I had enough information to conduct my own clinical trial. On myself, of course. I started introducing inulin rich foods to my diet, which was terrible. At the time of writing the script, I am on day 23 of eating 2 to 4 cloves of garlic, raw garlic, along with 5 grams of sunchoke tubes every day. My breath smelled like death, and I could barely walk without letting loose some gas exhaust. But sometimes you just have to try things for science. Also, even though we don't have a lot of clinical data on the benefits of inulin, it has been battle tested for thousands of years. Our ancestors ate plenty of it. As a side note, I avoided inulin supplements as it has been related to the development of hepatocellular carcinomas, or liver cancer. In the following days of trying this diet, I started noticing some things. On day 4, my energy levels after meals increased. On day 6, my abdominal pain disappeared. After about 2 weeks, I noticed that my trips to the restroom turned from frantic dashes to skips, which is a massive game changer if you know anyone with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. Am I cured? I don't think so. But with every fiber of my being, I feel like there's something here. Maybe it's just a gut feeling. I do expect to do some lab work in late February of this year, and so I'll post those results down in the comments section. In the meantime, let's talk about actual clinical trials for this, like real studies on people. Unfortunately, I could only find a couple. Some of these studies found similar benefits. However, these trials were quite short. The trials with published data only tested an inulin supplemented diet for 2 or 3 weeks. So we're pretty early here. There's very little clinical data. However, we do have historical data. It turns out that chicory root, sunchokes, also called Jerusalem artichoke, and garlic have been consumed for centuries. How did our ancestors deal with this disease? Well before the invention of modern medicine. These miraculous results got me to wonder, why was this happening? Why was my body responding to inulin? Here's my educated guess. Our immune system fully develops around the 7th or 8th age of life. Inflammatory bowel disease, so that includes Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, is generally diagnosed between the ages of 20 and 30. What happened during the gap, or even the years up to diagnosis? Why didn't it develop the moment our immune system came fully online? If I had to audit the 3 to 5 years prior to when I started noticing these symptoms, I definitely wasn't getting much butyrate from my diet, and I was going to town with foods laced with omega 6 fatty acids. We just learned about the important functions of butyrate in the body. Without it, the gut is unable to maintain the intestinal wall and eventually becomes starved of its primary energy source. Also, there does seem to be some studies mentioning the Western diet being exceptionally high in omega 6 fatty acids, which is associated with multiple health consequences. The combination of these two factors, low butyrate and high omega 6 fatty acids, damages the GI tract. Compounded over several decades, develops into what we call inflammatory bowel disease. Maybe that's why I can't handle pizza. The final thing I wanted to leave you with is this absolutely stunning table. It turns out when inulin is broken down, butyrate is just one out of 3 types of short chain fatty acids produced in the colon, each with their own effects on the body. I wonder, with the fiber load diet, especially in the Western world, where we're missing out on all these effects, is that the cause for all these chronic diseases? And if so, then that means that the supposed diseases of the 21st century might really be nutritional deficiencies. To tell the full story of dietary fiber, we're just scratching the surface. Also, I just want to eat pizza. Is it too much to ask?